warm welcome to this Tuesday morning's live stream with me, Fredrik Holmboe. You're probably here today because you are interested in digital marketing, modern communication strategies, and organizational psychology in pharma and life science. And I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. What does your morning look like? Beautiful, shiny, warm, cold, amazing, stressful, calm? Feel free to write how your morning is and where you are joining from so that we all can get a chance to say hello. Have a cup of coffee or tea. This is my tea. Sit back and join us, me and Hyllén, for the next 45 minutes. But first, before I introduce today's topic and guest, a little bit more, some ways for you to get the most out of this live stream. So this live stream is being recorded, so don't worry if you miss anything. You will have the access to all the materials after the event. Just send me a message if needed. And second, and this is the most important, we want to hear from you. Send questions, thoughts, comments, ideas to us using the comment section, and we will use that in the live stream. And with that said, while you write about your morning and where you are connecting from, I'll put on some different music and introduce today's topic. So the topic of the day, and I really love this music, is digital changes that happen in our industry during and after the pandemic. How do we secure that we are on the right track with our massive investments? So with me today, I have Hyllén. He's a senior commercial excellence consultant at ProMeasure, and we will talk about how the digital landscape and the platforms look like and how we as an industry can secure that the customer journey is correct and applied to our marketing activities. So we will discuss how we can help you to simplify your processes, to improve the customer experience, very important, and create the correct content at the right time, in the right format, and using the right channel. So welcome for this challenging contest or this webcast, and I want to welcome Hyllén. There we have him.
Good morning, Fredrik.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you here, Pat.
Thank you, Fredrik, and of course, happy to be here. And good morning to everyone else who's joining.
Thank you. And we have prepared a few slides to add some visuals to what we're going to discuss today. And well, Pat, if you would just like to shortly introduce yourself so that everybody can get a bit of more information about you before we jump in.
Sure.
Yep.
So as Fredrik said, I work as a senior consultant at ProMeasure out of Copenhagen. We are basically or very much focusing, a vendor focusing around CRM and all the services that you might connect to that. But that, of course, is a big universe linking from content all over to the field force and so forth. But with the CRM and both, you can say, the technical side, but also the processes in focus. My background is otherwise, I've been working around 18 years in the pharma industry and on the commercial side. So that's my background.
Amazing. Super. So we have tons of good stuff to share today. And before we jump into the slides, good morning, Henrik. Nice to have you here. And Philip, Gothenburg, snow and excited. Well, we have received quite a lot of snow, haven't we? And I think we are looking to have a storm somewhere in Sweden, if I remember correctly. We also have Jonas Wiklund. Good morning from Gothenburg. Can't see you, Fredrik. Well,
your picture is not in the picture in my place.
I am not in the picture. Well, it's not a very good picture. So let's jump into the slides instead. And as I said, while we present, write down questions, thoughts, comments, ideas, whatever you can think of during this presentation. And I'm just going to remove Jonas and begin to present. Here we go. So, as usual, Per, just say next, and I will change the slides for you.
Yep, absolutely. So when Fredrik and I started talking about this, I mean, we evidently, even as vendors or supporting services or whatever you want to call it for the pharma industry, which is both Fredrik's and my can say main customer category, we all had a lot of discussions and questions around what actually happened during and after the pandemic. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll try to shed a little bit of light. And there you go, Fredrik. I can see you as well.
Awesome.
How we see it from our side. It might be different from your side. I'll be happy to see your comment on that, of course, in the comments field as well. We will also have a few minutes at the end, of course, to discuss a little bit. So, but when the pandemic hit, most organization was, of course, faced with access issues, which was the first, say, symptom, and we all had to think twice on also from our side, of course, because we couldn't meet you guys, how to keep momentum up. So if we take the next slide. So the pandemic, of course, put full focus on the challenges when it came to access issues. Not that we haven't had them before, depending a little bit, of course, where you are in the customer, in the European markets. We could also see that, and many companies actually kind of went into some kind of full-blown panic attack, getting really stressed about what should we do, what kind of digital services and activities can we launch straight off the bat. Many companies have been talking about it. A lot of them have not done so much. All of a sudden, everyone was doing everything, but not really maybe tracking exactly what they wanted to see as coming out of that. Or this kind of stress kind of resulted in that many companies skipped the basics. They didn't really change the KPIs. They used their old KPIs, the key performance indicators. And that, of course, could not really show the outcome of the digital activities as such. We can also see that companies look more on activity level as such, rather than what do we actually change? What kind of outcome did we actually get out of it? And we can take, for example, approved emails as an example, where many companies fired off a lot of approved emails. They set up the whole machinery, fired off. They did not really have a strategy. They did not see what actually worked. And we could see that curve going up on a number of approved emails that went out and then went down again because no one really knew if they were doing anything. And people got a little bit, some kind of fatigue when it came to this.
That is something that I can relate to as well. A lot of companies, pharma companies, they are very focused on collecting consent, and the next step in that is, so what are you going to use the consents for? Well, it's to send emails. Okay, so emails, you're going to send emails. What will those emails contain? And you need to have a real and solid email marketing strategy, which, as email is just a channel, it needs to be built on a real content strategy. And well, I guess that was why we saw an increase, because that was the panic attack, and then a decrease because, well, the results weren't really there, maybe.
No, and I think you're completely right, Fredrik. I mean, the lack of both mapping the customer journey, but also the patient journey. I mean, this is the primary and secondary line of customers, right? And the lack of having skipped those two mappings, and also just as you say, focusing on the consent, but still having very few, was also an issue, as we could see from that. So with all with all those initiatives, and how do we then know what to keep, what to scrap, and what actually to add to the mix, right? So if we take the next slide. So I just wanted to, and I will come back to a little bit on how we go about this. But I just wanted to take 2 seconds to just introduce ProMeasure, what we actually do a little bit. And that is, I mean, for those who don't know ProMeasure, we build our services around CRM, as I said before, and activities. So, and we are more or less completely system agnostic. We are preferred partners with both IQVIA, OCE, Viva, but also we also work with Salesforce, you could say plain vanilla version. So we work both with medtech and pharma companies as such, but we are focusing very much only on in the pharma industry. And I mean, from our side, we truly believe that, like any orchestra, it will not bring any symphony unless tune into some until everyone is tuned into the same melody, right? So that's how it all comes together. And it also comes, as you said before, you need to see the full scope. Today we're talking about content, and content goes all the way from creative phase all over to the customers, and there are a lot of steps in that, and that needs to go very smoothly. And that's where we kind of come in and try to make sure that we look very much on those processes, and we have also created some tools for that, which I will come back to at the end. So shall we take the next slide and not dwell too much on that? So I think what we can see from our perspective is that, well, there are a lot of issues, and this is not this is not a blame game saying, oh my goodness, pharma can't do this. Pharma is actually quite good at a lot of things. We are a little bit late. Some people normally say that we are 3 to 5 years after, you could say, for example, fast consumer goods and so forth, because they are so much more reactive and faster, and they don't have all the regulatory things that we have, which is always, of course, an issue or a kind of a hindrance that we need to go over, right? But I mean, as we see it, I mean, there are three points in this loop that we always should try to close, right? In closed loop marketing. One comes already in the content side, where we can see that a lot of companies do not use. They have their old agencies, but those agencies are not always up to speed and up to the digital journey that we are on now. It takes quite a long time for them, if they ever do that, to become Viva, for example, Viva content partners. So they know actually how to upload and have get all the content into the system, into ProMats, and then further, of course, all the way through MLR and into the up to the CRM system and out to the field force. So that's kind of one of the major holdups that we see already in the beginning. On the second side, the second part, you can see in number 2 here on the action side, is that when you are fixing all your content, you need a strategy, right? That's still not the issue. A lot of companies are not setting up a good strategy where you create a real good set of actions, and you know exactly how to follow up on that. So with the correct KPIs, tracked and captured. And that's nothing new. That's something we have seen in the industry for 20 years, right? So it's nothing new as such. And then the third part here is, of course, the getting those actionable insights back to the business. I mean, a lot of we want to have that knowledge fed back all the way around to close the loop, to make sure that we are not doing the same mistakes again, basically, right? So ensuring that we always measure change and not only static KPIs is, of course, crucial for this to work, because you can always have calls per day. You know, the good old KPIs like calls per day, contacts per day, and how many number of emails and open click rates and so forth. But the real thing is, of course, we want to measure what is changed, and that is something that we need to focus a lot more on to drive both our businesses and our results. So, but if we take next slide.
I just want to stick with this slide, because I actually are getting a few thoughts on the content. And while I present my thoughts, what do you in the live stream think about this? What are your comments in regards to these 3 areas that I just mentioned, or do you see your own um, sort of improvements or areas for improvement. One thing, and you talked about the agencies that are being that are getting the tasks to support pharma companies, and I've also worked, as many of you know, in pharma since 2006, and a lot of the meetings with pharma agencies are focused on doing what the pharma company wants to get, in terms of, we are so used to translating, localizing, and approving the content we get from higher up, and the agencies are also sort of trained into that form of collaboration. What we need is, and I will get into that a bit later, but what we need is, in the idea content creation part, we need to have something that is a bit more structured and more back to the basics, because the basics have changed so dramatically during the pandemic. But then also during the content upload approval, MLR, promomats, that piece of this process that you present needs to be more agile to be able to cope with the on demand and really fast paced need of digital content. So that is that.
I mean, yeah. And I think I see this a little bit as, I mean, when we all kicked in, when we all started doing all these things, we talked to, it was very much like digital 1.0, right? In that sense.
Yeah.
And there are 2,000 descriptions of what is 1.0 and 2.0. So, but you could say the first phase, or whatever you want to call it. But say digital 1.0, that is just getting the basics right in the beginning, right? Or do what we did in the beginning without really knowing what we were doing. Yeah. We are now going into like 2.0, where we actually doing, it goes up, we get a lot of things that we want to do, and we also now we're trying to find the processes that are working. We try to see what kind of strategies do we actually, we want to create that roadmap, and so that we know how this all works. And that's kind of a big chunk, which will be a too big chunk. So what we then after that, but it's still necessary. We need to go through this. We need to test, because all our markets are different. All our customers are different. And of course, it's better when you have personas. It makes it easier at the end. But we'll come back to that. Then after all this, there will come 3.0, where it will be simplifying. We need to have smooth processes. We need to have them going more, I wouldn't say automated, but it needs to be simplified, so that we do not run into some kind of digital fatigue. And that's what we very much focus around with our customers, to first of all get them now through that, create that roadmap, and then transfer them into that more simplistic way of working, so that everyone knows what to do, and doesn't need to be super duper specified people that work with this, right? Creative people, yes, of course, as always, but not super technical. So, but if we go to the next slide.
Yep.
So if we just take a stab on, well, how do we make all this happen? Well, as we said before, objectives are supposed to be cascaded down through the organization. Nothing strange with that. And that is still as important today as it was before the pandemic. We still see that silo thinking when it comes to sales and marketing. Even if we are setting up business units and so forth with sales and marketing under one hat, we still need to be better at aligning sales and marketing, because otherwise we all, as normally, we could continue to run in our different tracks. As you said, Fredrik, just a few seconds ago, make sure to get the basics right. It's more true than ever. And that actually comes down to very basic things, right? Segmentation, targeting, and so forth. And all that customer journey and patient journey, and getting the basic marketing and sales tools straightened out again.
Yeah, I'm actually writing an article about segmentation, and the last question we had was about segmentation, but the article, I think, I think it will be good. I hope it will be good, but that's the next article at least. But segmentation is one thing.
Yeah.
And let me just we have an idea from Henrik Ahlqvist here that I want to address because I think it fits it in quite well. Content creation is a bottleneck. Collecting consent, launching technology, and setting KPIs is one thing, but how can we create more and better content? Just building something basic as an email content calendar is challenging. And yes, it is. And more and better content is something that will be addressed a bit later. What we need to also have is I think the focus that Paris is on here, and that is how to technically solve it, to close the loop and make it
I
better.
think the quick answer to this is what we just said before, that we need to focus on the change, and that actually comes to the next point here also: map the customer and patient journeys. Right? I mean, those part are so getting to know our first and second line of customers, and know exactly where they are and where you want them to be, create and visualize what kind of change we need to make for them, or what kind of journey they need to go through to be customers of ours or of yours. I mean, if you know what kind of change you want to make, and this actually goes also back to the point bullet before. Segmentation and targeting. We talked about the gap between sales and marketing. It all comes here now as the perfect storm, right? Where we can see that, well, what happened? Well, the whole field force and sales organization, they work a lot on creating sales. They map all the customers. They do all the segmentation and targeting. They do all that stuff. And what do market and then that is handed over to marketing, and we say, well, here guys, here you have the market. These are the customers. Do they look at them? In most cases, no. They create their own marketing material, which they feel are the best things that we can make. And if you do not link saying that I would like to change, and this is of course different from company to company, but say that you have the standard ABC 1, 2, 3 grid for segmentation and targeting. If you want to change someone to move from B1 to A1, then there is a change needed, and that comes into this. Right? You map it, you set the objectives, and then you create the content to do that, and making sure that you can to create that change, hopefully. But at least it's better to go that way around than just doing the content to see if it works, as we have been doing now with, for example, approved emails, just firing 10 of them different, but never checking out what happened with them, right?
Yeah, and that is something that I think we are very good at in the pharma industry. We see a problem. I actually heard this on a international pharma congress, and one guy on the stage, he said, "We are the fastest industry to see a problem and then just run to solve it, not really stopping to identify the problem or
No.
build a customer."
So I think they close the loop in marketing and business planning. I mean, that's something that we've been through. So I think we'll just go to the next slide, please.
Yep.
So I just wanted to touch on two. I mean, we have these questions, like Henrik says here, and I mean, this is something we address with other companies, and we have developed two tools today that we work with. One is the digital maturity assessment, where we do a deep dive and looking into where are you now, and where how does your digital journey look like, and how are you doing, basically, right? Checking under the hood. The other one is the digital operations transformation tool, the DOT that we call it, where we basically that comes after the DOT, after the digital. The digital maturity assessment, and that's kind of very much going into the processes and the tools that you're using. If you're using Viva, then we look into CRM and ProMeasure and all, and see how is this all running as it should. And it's not in most cases, because many companies been running on Viva, for example, for so many years and they haven't done the upgrades and moved into the modern world in most cases, especially on the ProMat side, but also on CRM. There are quite often a lot of things that you can do. And this is actually more to ensure that you're investing your money right. You're still going to pay for all that stuff, but you might as well make sure that you're getting the right things out of it. And that's where we use these two tools to identify and get things running and create the roadmap for how you go forward. Also the process documents, gap analysis, and all those stuff that we want to have. So, but let's not dwell more on that. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this is a busy slide, and I'm not going to go through this. This is basically just to highlight the complexity that it comes into all this, right? You need to have an organized and structured approach to this, and that will save time and money in the end. You need to invest some time to gain some time. That's the standard that is nothing more strange here, but it will also mean that it will in the end give a lot to the field force, to the brand teams, and the customers at the end, and it will be where we address that. And that's kind of, so if we take the next slide, coming through this, this is actually where we will then move into Fredrik's part of this.
And I'm actually going to fire away a question that we haven't prepared for, but this slide, how does that compare to the closing the loop slide? If we go back to the closing the loop slide, I'm just thinking, I mean, what we see in this slide, I guess, is parts of the steps as you have the strategy, the requirements, request for proposal, implementation, rollout, and so on and so forth. So I guess that what we see here is some of these steps as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, these steps are some of the steps, but there is a lot of things that can go wrong or that you can miss in this, and that's why we have this grid, the more complex version, of course, because that's where we make sure that we don't. It's like a checklist, basically, right? It makes sure that you go through the things that is needed, and 90% will be okay. The 10%, but it's the 10% that makes things move, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to inform the viewers, the partnership between Dualia and ProMeasure is basically that ProMeasure are supporting this transformation, and the part of this whole journey where me and my team is really skilled is in this, the idea, the content creation, and you talked about personas, and we're going to get into how this actually is done and how it's been done in several pharma and life science companies. But when we met the first time, Per, what we noticed was that the work that you do and the work that I do, it really sort of fits together very nicely in this whole process. And if we look at this more detailed slide, this becomes the part where we're now going to focus in the rest of this broadcast. But I really like the way that you have identified and listed all the bullet points that goes into all of these steps, because for content, which can be anything, for content to be relevant to the recipient, there's a lot of homework that needs to be done. And we need to step out of one thing, and that is the focus on branded content. So any thoughts on that before I step into my very pink slides? Let's see if we have any comments. Not any comments. All right. Pink slides, here they come. Okay. So we talked about content, and content is one of the most difficult words, because it can basically mean anything. What me and Per are doing here, it's content. The slides that we are showing is content. When I speak it's content. And content is basically everything in communication. I tend to like to think about it as the influencer moving to Mallorca to get better content, the selfies on the beaches and everything. But it's also very scientific content coming from pharma companies. And if we look at this and become philosophical for a short while, content is basically a package to be delivered. I deliver this now as a package to you. Per's slide was something that was put together in a set of slides, delivered to you. So it's a package to be delivered. And when we think about content, we in the pharma industry, we have it all backwards in compared to business companies like fast moving consumer goods or other business to business companies. And I would like you to write in the comment field what you see on this slide, please. And we have a 20-second delay. So I'm going to give it 10 seconds for the comments to come in. What do you see in this slide? I guess, based on the 20-second delay, that a lot of you will write, I see a pink dot. Or some of you will write, I see a lot of white. Okay? The pink dot illustrates the branded communication. And in a pharma marketing communication setting, this pink dot is quite small. And it is what we can talk about when it comes to our brand, our medicine, because we are so tightly regulated by the SMPC. So we can't say a lot. But in different international pharma conferences that I've managed to go to, there's a lot of talk about above the brand content or beyond the pill content. And if we think about what is relevant or interesting to the recipient when we talk about something within the therapy area, the medicine that we have, the drug that we have, is just a very, very small part of the pie, a small piece of the pie. There's so much more going on in the clinical patient-doctor meeting or at the clinic where we can support. And actually, that's where we should focus a lot of our commercial budget. Because when I say that we have it the other way around, above the brand content should be at least 60-70% of the content that we create and publish on our websites, and branded communication should just be 10%. There's actually a model for this coming from the inbound marketing methodology that says that brand communication supporting the decision phase should just be 10% of the communication that you create. So think about this, because this is quite or very important. And then this slide, actually, I used in my first presentation, 2014. I've always said that it's 2015, but it's actually 2014. So what you want to say and what they are interested in is where we need to sort of define the content creation that we have. And for me, this looks like 50-50, but in the pharma industry, I would like to say that let's set the goal at 90% what they are interested in, and then just add a bit of what we want to talk about. That way we will sort of begin to work and progress towards the relevancy for the recipient. So the content that is a package to be delivered, let's say that this is your European headquarters and they created that package. And if that package is delivered in a sales situation like this, in a room with the customer in the room, that package can be adjusted to the questions, facial expressions, body language, so on and so forth. But if it's presented like this, it's presented via a laptop screen what is on the screen will be what you present, what you communicate. The package is delivered in that exact format, right? Nothing can be adjusted on the way from the screen to the recipient. And our whole goal with creating content should be that wow factor. And quite often our branded communication isn't that much wow, because a lot of our doctors and nurses, they are up to speed on the latest drug development, and we are there with a good drug, otherwise we wouldn't be there. So we should have that wow, this company actually provides useful stuff to me in my clinical everyday practice. So what that means, and I mentioned it, we need to do the homework. And as Per was saying, we need to get back to the basics, get the fundamentals down, and the level of everything you will do will rise. But we have been working with the basics like last 10, 20 years, right? We've done the basics over and over and over again. But the reason, or the basics have actually changed, and especially during the pandemic. It's science saying that we moved forward 3 to 5 years just during the pandemic digitally. So do the homework. And the homework, if we look at it and we talk about communication, commercial communication, it's created based on customer knowledge and insights, based on data, and optimized per channel. And just looking at this, customer knowledge and insights is basically what the sales department have. Data is the business intelligence or the marketing department, and optimized per channel is typically the people in the organization that actually publishes the material. So here we have the foundation for the need of collaboration between the departments in the organization. So we have developed the ABC Plus model, and it's an exact process to generate impactful content marketing in 2 days, 1 full day and 2 half days. So I'm quickly going to go through this, and what it requires to go through this is a cross-functional experienced team with good customer knowledge. And in the beginning, in the A phase, the larger group, the better, because you will have a bit of change management in this, but then smaller and smaller team during the process. And most often no preparations is needed from the participants. So it is these 2 days that you invest to get to a publication plan that is database and persona focused. So if we look at the A, we have a pre-meeting and we discuss and conclude what would be the best way forward. And then we set a framework that we present to in workshop number 1. It's 1 day on site, and it's a cross-functional team. It's sales, marketing, medical, digital, preferably compliance, preferably senior management. It can be market access, it can be public affairs. Quite a big chunk of the organization should be there, because it also gives all the people in the room the same semantic foundation to stand on. And semantics is basically the knowledge of what words actually means. So then we talk about inbound marketing, or the way that we should communicate modern marketing. And then we look at personas and the buyer journeys. And based on the drafting of a first persona, and what we do is, and this is so important, and I can't believe that this isn't really structured already. We have, all the different segments in Viva, for instance. What we do, because the segments is basically more a ground for confusion, because it's so narrowly or thinly described. What we need to do is connect a persona to a segment, because the persona is used by marketing and sales and medical, and they can then talk together about who this persona is. Then we conclude that workshop after we've done a bit of content brainstorming, what we can talk about or the content we can produce to this persona. Then we go into the B. So there's always a search engine universe that every product or service are within, and we do a keyword analysis for that. And then we recap what we did in the first stage. And then my animation is a bit messed up, but we will look at the keywords, we'll prioritize them, we will continue the brainstorming, because the brainstorming that we do in these 3 sessions and prioritization of them will be what gets you ahead of the need. And then we look at some premium content. But the thing that should have been there is also we look at the buyer persona we created and validate it. And then we get into the C, which is content strategy. We look at marketing metrics and KPIs, and this is where ProMeasure and Per can be very helpful as well to set them up from the technical point of view. Then we sign off on the keyword list, basically the keywords that tells us how much different search phrases are searched for per month and how difficult it is, how much content is being produced on that topic or on that search phrase per month. And we can extrapolate from how many searches there are to the interest in certain topics. And if it's searched on Google, it's probably also asked in the meeting with the doctor. And then we do a bit of content analysis. We put source and angle to our prior ones, continue with the premium content analysis, and end up with the publication plan. So through the ABC, we go from not having a focal point for our discussions to a publication plan, which basically means that we have done the homework, right? And this can be managed in 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the customer schedule and workload. Done the homework following a proven process. And we talk about digital inhabitants, digital immigrants in our customer base, but we're not just going to, talk to them now. We also need to meet the next generation, and we don't really know what they need. So with that, with a few more minutes to spare, I would like to conclude this and say that get in touch. Here are our contact information, and let's see what we have from you guys. Perfect. So what's your thinking, Pat, when we've gone through this?
Well, from my point of view, I mean, I know that there is, as you said, there are some homework that I think most companies need to do. There is a cleanup phase, there is an alignment phase, and there is a simplifying phase.
Yeah.
And yes, it sounds terrible that we're talking about the basics again. But I mean, we need to be honest. The pandemic turned everything upside down, and most companies spend a big chunk of investments to getting all this stuff up and running. Unfortunately, not everyone knows exactly what is working and not, and they might not even be addressing the right problem or pushing the right change, or, as coming back to what you just talked about, addressing the right customers.
Yeah.
So I think this whole cleanup process is about making sure that your investment is bearing fruit, making sure that they are useful investments.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not a question, and it's not a question of throwing bad money after bad money, right? This is most of these processes are quite small changes that is needed. It's just that we need to stop and take a look.
Yeah.
And that's where I think both you and I can help the customers in that sense.
Yeah, I believe so too. And the foundation, the basics for good communication is always putting the recipient in the absolute center, and well, that is what we are striving and working towards. We have a question from Philip. What is the most important marketing metrics and KPIs that you're using for your clients? You want to give that an answer? The most important marketing metrics and KPIs?
You're more in marketing than I am.
Yeah. No, but I think like this. So let's think on that for a minute. In all organizations that I worked with, there's always a cutoff point where marketing sort of starts attracting with good content and good communication, and there's always a cutoff point where marketing no longer has the responsibility to sort of push the process forward, and in my mind, the websites, we cannot have websites just to have websites. They're too expensive to run just to have them. The websites for pharma companies should have as one primary KPI to book either physical meetings or register to webinars, or facilitate and measure how you manage to interact with the market. Those KPIs are the most important ones. Everything else, open rates, click-through rates, all of that is just vanity metrics in my mind. It always has to do with getting the attention, getting the eyeballs of your customers on what you want to say. And when you have them, you must have prepared that really, really well. We cannot longer have just, a brand manager saying, "Hi, welcome. We have Professor X here talking to us today," and then do a short intro. Professor talks for 45 minutes, and then the brand manager ends, or the salesperson ends the webinar by maybe giving you a bit of product information and then say something to close down the call. We need to have something more than that.
I think that there are both internal and I think they need to divide a little bit in both into internal and external KPIs.
Yeah.
I think we need to have internal in the sense that we need. We're not talking about the marketing side, right? Are the materials actually used? If you're using Viva and you're using ProMeasure, for example, and you have set up a brand portal, you can track exactly what kind of material is used. All the stuff you actually created, are they used? Externally, it's more a question, okay, what did we actually want to change? And focus on those changes, right? Where did we drive anyone from A to B? Did we ensure that the X number of customers all were reached with this message so that we can make the change? So, it doesn't need to be difficult, but you need to think twice and make sure that you're measuring something that is making a difference and not just 200 mails.
Yeah, no, exactly. And in the pre, during, and after phase, in the pre-planning, it's very important to define what you want to see as measurable outcomes, and then make sure that in the after phase you have booked meetings already when you start the project to go through different metrics. Let's see. Renee is writing, for me, you have two main drivers, one being exposure and the other engagement, and both must be tracked for the targeted audience. Exposure without engagement is vanity. Yes, Renee, I completely agree. There's a lot of vanity metrics going around, and vanity metrics, for those of you who haven't heard that term before, it's basically open rates, which is nice, but they don't necessarily mean that someone clicks or engages with the content. It doesn't drive the business. And then you have click-through rates, which is slightly less of a vanity metric, but still do you know that it drives business? So vanity metrics, a lot of them going around. What you need is some real KPIs that actually tells you how much attention you might get. But with that, we have had fun 5 more minutes than we planned, Per. So to conclude this, thank you for being on this live stream, Per. Thank you for your insights and knowledge on the area of Viva and the technical side of customer engagement. And I agree, it's simplifying that we need to focus on now, gathering all the insights and changes that we experienced during the pandemic and turn them into opportunities that we actually take action on. And well, with that, thank you everybody who joined this live stream, and you know where to find us if you have any further questions. And as I said, this is a recorded session, so it will be available afterwards. And with that, I think I will just put on some really nice music, let this slide stay on for a little while, and say goodbye and wish you all a great Tuesday.
Have a great one.
Bye for now.
Cheers.